Welcome to Cause Before Symptom with your host, James Carner.
Who gains from the Charlie Kirk assassination? Who benefits? We're going to get into all those details and more coming up. Welcome to Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. Today is September 14th, 2025. Tonight's episode is about the benefactors of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Who actually benefits from this? We're going to go into a deep dive and find out why this most definitely was politically motivated and who stands to benefit from the death of a person, an American, who stood up for what they believed in, regardless if it was wrong or right. He was an American. And we've been divided so much that a lot of the nation really thinks that that was okay to murder someone. Interesting times we live in, most definitely. Shout out to everybody on the live chat, Rumble, all the warriors out there. Scorpion is number one warrior saying, welcome to the AI takeover. Could possibly be. And number two warrior is Boots, saying warriors come out and pray. Hello, James and warrior fam. All right, all night long. High five, thumbs up, and please hit the like button. Just hit the X, then thumbs up, then hit the live chat, and you're back. That's right. Rumble judges us based on thumbs up versus based on subscribers. The algorithm doesn't like me very much. Number three warrior is Texas militia official saying howdy with the Texan icon. Yes, thank you so much for that emoji, Texas militia. We love you. Jeffrey, number four warrior, saying, hey y'all, everyone finally see Israel for who they really are, aka bad people. Well, the left has been saying this for quite some time, believe it or not, and well, they're right. Israel is a thorn in the side of every nation, and because they are Rothschild-backed, IMF-backed, World Bank-backed, Bank for International Settlements-backed, they can do whatever they want. Now, hopefully Trump puts an end to that, but they kind of have Trump by the balls, you know, and Trump's trying to slow down Netanyahu's race to put in the Messiah in the third temple in Israel, but we will see. And number 6 warrior is Sheila saying, hey, they kicked you fast. Yeah, I was on live TikTok, and well, I think when I played my memorial to Charlie Kirk, I played taps and I kind of just, in the middle of it, was talking. Said a few words of an opinion. I don't think TikTok like that. Yeah, I'm once again suspended for 7 days on TikTok Live. It is what it is. I mean, going on TikTok is a waste of time and energy for me, but I do because maybe it'll help gain a few more people over here. Jeffrey says, I'm tired of seeing Trump on his knees for Netanyahu. Well, that's what happens when you don't have the power that Netanyahu does over Trump. And believe me, the kinds of things that these world leaders make other world leaders do in the back room, well, let's just say someone's violated. That's what I was trying to do. Son of a brooch. All right, let's get into breaking news. Utah Governor Cox says social media played a direct role in political violence. Blame it on social media. Yeah, that'll work. Sure. Well, it does because, hey, if NBC prints it, then it's the truth, right? Charlie Kirk murder suspect radicalized online and not cooperating, says Utah Governor. The Utah Governor Cox really wants to get answers so it doesn't make her party look bad. Well, tough shit. Rubio visits Israel in wake of Qatar attack. Rubio's going to go there and get on his knees for Netanyahu because, well, Rubio doesn't have that kind of cash. Not like Israel and the money they have. Young activist who toppled Nepal's government now picking a new young leader. All right. Viva Nepal. And U.S. and China resumes talks on tariffs and TikTok. Well, of course they are. They're always at the last end of kicking TikTok out, and they never do anything. So you know they're not going to do anything because, unfortunately, TikTok is helping the economy because that money is being taken in America. Okay, it's not going directly to China. It's going to an American company. All right. Now, TikTok was made from someone who was born in China but lives in another country altogether. And no. Came from, he was born in another country. I forgot which country it was. But anyway, it's not just a Chinese application. No, it's an Asian application from another country. And, well, they're trying to blame China for it. Jim Edgar's death, former Republican Illinois governor Jim Edgar dies at 79. Well, that's about the age that people die nowadays. So another one bites the dust. I have no sympathy or empathy for congressmen, senators, congresswomen, senator women, none of them, because they're all working for the bad guys. Jeffrey says, Singapore. Yes, Singapore. And I don't think Singapore is a part of China, is it? I don't think so. I think it's its own nation. What do I know? I don't live there. Well, I wish I had more, but unfortunately, that's all of the shitty, lying, breaking news. All right, folks, so we're going to go to a commercial, and when we get back, we're going to talk about who really gains from the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Do you have tax burdens? Do you carry personal liability? If so, let me tell you why you have tax burdens and personal liability. And if you stick with me until the end, I'll share a simple solution to reduce the burdens you carry. When you put assets in your name, you also carry the liability. And by setting up a corporation, LLC, or partnership, you also carry the liability for the share of ownership you have in these organizations. So when you receive a W-2 form, 1099, or K-1 at the end of each year, that shows your liability for the assets you have carried in your name or your business name. The flow of liability works this way. You get a job, you take money in your name. When you are a contractor, you take money in your name. When you begin a business, you take money in the business name, which is set up with you as the owner. Nelson Rockefeller quoted, "The secret to success is to own nothing but control everything." He said this because when you own something in your name, you also own the liabilities. Introducing the solution. Begin an unincorporated association and remove assets out of your name while remaining in control and management of them. An unincorporated association is a state-registered entity that you can put assets into, is member-based and not tied to your name, has a tax-exempt EIN number, is private and not found when doing an online search. Whether you receive a 1099 or K-1 under your name, consider setting up your own unincorporated association and allow the association to be the owner of your assets and free yourself from the burden of personal liability. P.S. Join our affiliate program and receive payment for referrals.
All right, we're back to the show. I forgot I had that button on. Oh, my God. James. As I was, during the commercial, I was watching some of you guys talk, and Scorpion brings up a really good point. He says, I'm convinced the address from Trump Wednesday night was AI generated. Well, I did see the finger thing where he, then all of a sudden missing finger, and then fingers back, missing finger back. Yeah, you know, because AI is valuable to save time, It wouldn't surprise me if they use AI for addresses, Just give them the speech, they'll put it up and have Trump say it. It does not mean that Trump didn't write that address. And it also doesn't mean that we're now under AI control. Not yet, but could be soon. Now, I don't have any data that says for or against that we are under AI control currently. But what's interesting is the way that politics is when a left person gets into office and a right person gets into office, they shift so far that it turns it's hurting and ruining the country and their policies by coming in and negating all the executive orders from the prior one. Then the other one comes in and adds a bunch of others, and then the next one comes in and negates all. And and it's not helping any of us. And although people will continue to hate and believe the left-right paradigm bullshit, which is one bird, two wings, until people can wake up from that, I don't see us getting any further than allowing them to continue taking our freedoms away. If we continue to focus on this like everyone's going to be focusing on Charlie Kirk, well, we're losing the point. And tonight is perfect to talk about that because I'm going to show you that the Charlie Kirk assassination was by design. Now, I don't think that Charlie is alive. I think what we saw was real. But what's interesting is if we were under AI control, would AI just allow all of us to see the blood? You see, all of the other assassinations we've seen live, they cut that stuff off or they'll block you. They will not allow Charlie's blood. What's changed? Why now? Why is it perfectly acceptable for all of us to see that and continue to see it over and over and over again, getting shot in the neck, blood spewing, and not one social media platform blocking a person for uploading that video? That's very, 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 very interesting to think about. I don't know why. I think the closest guess I can be is conditioning us to see violence. And if AI were in control, it would be slowly adding things like that into our eyesights to program us to accept that this is okay, when it's not. Killing an American and the whole world seeing it in front of a college campus, regardless if they were Hitler or not, they're still a human being and still an American on American soil. And it seems that the country has been divided so much that everyone and no one really cares about the country anymore. They want it split up. So we could be heading towards a civil war. I don't know. If we are, then who's going to fund it? That's the big question. And who's going to pick up the tab of the $41 trillion that the American people owe to the Federal Reserve? Yes, we owe that money to the 12 private bankers. Half of them live in Europe, half of them live in the United States. We owe them $41 trillion. Who's going to pick up that tab? Or if we go into World War III, do we all just say, default? I don't know. But war always happens when a country is bankrupt. And look at Britain today. Britain's in bad shape. And it looks like Trump's standing up to them saying, good luck. You're on your own. And I do know that we've been under the control of the Britain regime for hundreds of years. Not just financially, but being used for war and other things. As the Rothschild Institute, who has an office in London, have been controlling under the Crown, which is a corporation, America and Canada, since they came over here to let us colonize this place for their gain and benefit because they knew eventually they would gain control over this land. And that's the whole point. That's what dynasties do. They won't stop unless they have it all, ever. And it takes another dynasty to say, I want that now. And they fight back and forth and back and forth. Excuse me. Jeffrey says, it's by design they want us afraid to speak up, basically saying you get big and speak your mind, you will lose your life. Well, yeah, I mean, isn't that what they did to Kennedy? John F. Kennedy? You know, threatened the Federal Reserve and you don't live long. That's how it is. So what was Charlie Kirk threatening? Was he a threat? What did he do? Now, guys, all the world is a stage, as we have been witnessing. And I saw an interesting video. I want to play it.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
If you are not awake to the divide and conquer strategy, you would see this video and you would be programmed. Immediately, you would be angry at the left, right? Because the left is the party of violence. And this video is actually from a news organization called Daily Wire, dividing us. These things don't bring us together. That's a typical media response to a horrible, horrific event, to point us in the right way and the wrong way that they want us to think. This video that I saw, that I just showed you, received 3.1 million likes, and the comments inside there are continuing to divide us because it worked. They use things like this against us, saying, we're right, they're wrong. That's what the Daily Wire is saying. They're only giving you one example from two certain events, but not the entire picture. For example, with the Antifa movement and BLM, who paid for it? Who was behind it? And why? What's the cause before the symptom? Because we're just seeing the symptoms. And Charlie Kirk, his assassination, who was behind it and why? What we witnessed worldwide in assassination has done its job splendidly. You see, my show is all about the cause before the symptom. The cause here is control, and the symptom is division. Now, every age is defined by its martyrs. Not the kind who are burnt at the stake for their faith, but the kind who fall in plain daylight when the empire decides it needs another sacrifice. Charlie Kirk did not die in a war zone or on some distant battlefield. He died in America with a microphone in his hand, in the middle of a conversation about violence. A single bullet cut through his words, silencing him while the cameras rolled, while students listened, while the world watched. That irony is no accident. It is theater. It is ritual. And the question we must ask, and it's a simple one, who gains? Now, the media will frame it as random madness. Politicians will frame it as an opportunity to finally have a serious conversation about guns. We got to get those guns. Guns kill people. Commentators on the left will whisper that his rhetoric brought this on himself. And many on the right will struggle to understand why God allowed one of their champions to fall. But behind every headline, every op-ed, every soundbite, the pattern remains the same. Chaos always has beneficiaries. And when blood is spilled in the public square, someone profits. Now, Charlie Kirk was not just a commentator. He was a builder. He was a recruiter of youth, a fundraiser, a voice that filled auditoriums and college campuses with energy that frightened his enemies. And by silencing him, the conservative movement actually loses a key strategist and communicator. You see, by removing him, his opponents gain leverage, time, and momentum. But if we stop the analysis there, we miss the deeper play. Because assassinations are never just about individuals. They are about symbols. They are about what happens in the hearts and minds of millions who witness the spectacle. So we must press further, shouldn't we? Isn't that our job, to question, to analyze, to gather as much data as we possibly can to find the truth? Because everyone is stunned and there are no answers. So who gains when fear rises? Who gains when speech itself is treated as dangerous? When debates are silenced by bullets, when every tragedy is used to justify new laws and new restrictions? Well, who gains when citizens turn against each other? When conservatives scream persecution, when progressives cry, "See, we told you so." When the middle retreats into despair? There are powers in this world, political powers, huge power, financial powers, huge power, and spiritual powers that we've been told about in the Bible, that harvest division the way a farmer harvests grain. And they need spectacle. They need sacrifice. They need the ritual irony of a man killed while speaking about guns, so they can turn his death into fuel for their machinery. You see, they gain while people lose. It never stops. They gain while the truth is buried under headlines and hashtags. And yet there is one thing that these powers cannot control: how you and I respond. We can let the theater swallow us, or we can see through it. We can be pawns in the ritual, or we can anchor ourselves in a kingdom not built on fear, but built on truth. The assassination of Charlie Kirk was not just a crime. It was a signal. And tonight we will follow that signal, not to the headlines, but to the deeper reality here. You see, the question is not whether Charlie Kirk is gone. The question we must all ask is, who gains from his blood, and how do we refuse to give them what they want? Because they want something from you that they don't have. Your own thinking. Your own thoughts. your own religion, your own ideas, your own choices. You see, they don't have that. And these psychopaths that are in control of the world, the bankers, they truly believe through technology, they will get the opportunity to play God by taking away our choices. You see, I believe the abomination of desolation is exactly that. When the devil is able to get inside everyone's head and have a conversation. You see, he's not omnipotent, not omnipresent, but he's got a lot of spirits that can reply. And if he and these spirits are able to help you make choices by getting you to think you're talking to God, can change the whole paradigm of how our world behaves. Some say that our cell phones have that ability already to change our thought and behavior. Well, I would disagree with thought, but I would agree with behavior. Because what our cell phones and cell towers have the ability to do is to change how we feel. They can bring in fear, they can bring in depression, and they can do this all while using technology. And this is the scary part, that they now have the ability to change the way we all feel just by using smart gadgets that you willingly buy from them. Sabrina Wallace showed us the outline of how they do it and what they plan on doing in the future. I did a show on Sabrina and her her background and where she got the information and all of the websites and documentation that she pointed to, and was able to prove she was correct. And the ability that the devil can get inside us, the third temple, is the day. And change our minds, our choices, can talk to us like he's God. Well, that is the abomination of desolation. Now, the King James Version talks about this and says, yep, it's going to happen. And it has not happened yet. Yet the Ethiopian canon says he's never going to get to it. It's always good to look at every stone and turn it over. Because if we don't, we're going to be lost in the shuffle of propaganda, which in America is legal to do, thanks to the Smith-Mundt Act. And apparently Charlie Kirk, they're trying to use him as his name to put the Smith-Mundt Act back into place, as Obama was the one who took it down, didn't renew it, which makes it illegal for governments to use media for propaganda. You mean that's legal? It's been legal for quite some time. And many argue that that's when shit hit the fan and we started losing our minds. Now, before we can trace who gains, we have to sit with what was lost. Charlie Kirk wasn't just a loud voice on social media. He wasn't just another speaker on the conservative circuit. He wasn't the only one. There's hundreds of them. Hundreds of Charlie Kirks. He's the only one that garnered as much attention and built an empire of truth, according to him and Turning Point USA. And his creation didn't just hand out pamphlets or host rallies, it built pipelines. It trained young leaders. It raised enormous sums of money. And it connected the next generation of conservatives to a wider ecosystem of media and politics. He became, for millions of students, the first taste of organized resistance to progressive dominance in academia. He did. He was huge. And there have been times where he's been where Israel tried to get him to stop saying bad things about the Gaza thing, and he refused. Many people hate him. Many people loved him. But America as a whole is being taught through conditioning that it's okay to stay in those groups. And it's not. It is not okay to stay in the left and stay in the right. It's not okay to pick a party and go with it. Not in these times. Because there's enough data and evidence to prove that the left and the right are being used politically and through propaganda to achieve a certain agenda. That's not for the American people. And we've uncovered that on this show many times, trying to get to the bottom of the cause. Now, some would go in one direction and start from the bottom and work their way up. I did it differently. I started from the bottom or from the top and started working my way down. And that's where I came across the 13 Illuminated Families, a book written by Fritz Springmeier that the CIA publishes for free on their website. Redacted, but free. And as I was researching this, it wasn't connecting the dots because really the 13 Illuminated Families only seem to have control around America, or a majority of them in America. And it's not really, pointing us in any other direction other than America. So who are the ones controlling Europe? Or the people of the East? And as I dug further and further and further and grabbed every single piece of information I possibly could on history, empires, dynasties, prime ministers, popes, emperors, kings. There were certain families that I found that came out of Germany. There were 4 major families that split up into 13, which are now called the black nobility families. And it appears those are the ones that want war with Russia. Because, well, Europe and America are broke. And the East, they're not interested in putting their money into the West. They're interested in making money from them, but not interested in giving them money. And this is why BRICS showed up in the 90s as a counter central bank to the Federal Reserve. And these are those that are fighting against each other. The West, which I found are the Orsini clan, the Dukes of Germany, or back then would be Austria, against the Lee family, who inherited the breadth of the Breakspear dynasty, whom controlled the world during the Dark Ages. Now, this is the information that I've found now. As I continue to research and find more information, it steers and it skews and it goes in other places. But There are two dynasties fighting against each other for the crown, and the crown is to achieve the spear of Longinus, to hand that spear, the same spear that pierced the side of Jesus Christ, to hand that spear over to what both families are calling their Messiah. Some call the Messiah would be Jesus, but not the Jesus of the Bible, because that one, apparently, according to the Jews, was the incorrect one. But we're talking about religion, history, families, wealth, power, and the ultimate goal. Now, I wish Charlie Kirk would talk about those things. See, Charlie Kirk talked about the symptoms. He never went into the cause. I've never been interested in the symptoms. And he was really good at it. And argumentative, sure, but his points were valid most of the time. And sure, you could say that the way his approach was, prove me wrong, that he was not nice. Well, my grandmother taught me that there are people that are not going to be nice, and there is nothing you can do about it. And steer clear of them. But Charlie was part of the problem. No joke. You see, instead of uniting us together under one accord, he held on to one belief system and one ideology, the Constitution and Jesus Christ. And believe it or not, if Jesus were here, if he had to vote for Charlie Kirk to be on the conservative right, he probably wouldn't vote for him. Because Charlie wasn't listening to the other side. He was opinionated only on his, and he thought he was valid. Well, if you look at history and all of the philosophers out there, they all come to the agreement that nobody's right. And they all come to an agreement that every empire falls and every religion manipulates. And Charlie's assassination actually leaves a hole that cannot be easily filled right now. Leaders like him are not interchangeable, folks. His particular combination of charisma, boldness, and ability to mobilize both money and manpower made him a singular figure. I think that's important. You can't just dismiss him for being just a racist, misogynist asshole. Or was. He was very good at what he built and did. You have to give him credit for that. And within hours of his death, his organization faced the challenge of succession. Who speaks to the students now? Who keeps donors engaged? Who carries the torch? Because every delay, every hesitation, every fracture in the chain of command will weaken the movement that he built. And what we've learned today is, well, it's going to be Ben Shapiro. Huh? Ben Shapiro, who supports Israel, who supports Gaza, or who doesn't support Gaza and is killing women and children, at least 60% of women, children, and elderly out of the 117,000 Gazans that have died since that war began, which I wouldn't call it a war. I would call it just demolition, and people just seem to be in the way. So it's awfully convenient how Ben Shapiro is picking up the mantle for Turning Point, and Israel wins on this one. But we're going to talk about the left, how it's actually a tactical win for the left. It's actually a good thing for Israel on the right and the communists on the left. And this is why people are so confused, because the way things are written in this script, nothing's adding up that makes sense. In understanding AI that I understand now, AI isn't that smart yet to be able to plan it in a way like it's being planned right now. Because the way that it looks like, people are now just flying by the seat of their pants and making quick decisions, and they happen to be wrong ones. Because what happened to Charlie, well, it actually benefits all sides. And that doesn't work because what happened was an American was killed. This is the first dividend paid by his death. The sudden vacuum in leadership. And assassinations are always precise in this way. Remove the head and the body stumbles. And for those who opposed Charlie Kirk, the benefit is not obstruction. And it's not abstract either. It is immediate. Because his silence is their opening. Which in a way could be a political left's tactical win. You see, every political assassination has two stages: the act itself and the story told afterwards. For the political left, Charlie Kirk's death is both a subtraction and an addition. On one hand, they no longer face him in debate halls or on television screens or on the college circuit. And one of their most aggressive critics is gone. That is subtraction. But then comes the addition, the power to reframe the narrative. In the days that follow, we will not hear Charlie Kirk remembered as a builder of movements or a defender of free speech. Instead, many will whisper that his rhetoric was reckless, that his words invited conflict, that his tone created the very climate in which he was killed. The left doesn't need to prove this. They only need to say it enough times for it to stick. That is their tactical win, folks. To transform him from a victim into a warning. Now, I've told you guys the political divide in America is between the Orsinis and Lee family. The Lee family is controlling the Chicago Mafia. And all presidents from the Lee family come out of Chicago. The East. And for some reason, the Orsini family is using the Republican Party, but straight from a Democrat city, New York City. And it is there the Orsini president comes from. And they all meet every year to the Al Smith dinner to heckle and roast the opponents from the East and the West. As whoever wins, East or West, they literally get to control America, but for a short period of time. This shows me that they are working together. And as I've told you before, the International Monetary Fund points to the Bank for International Settlements, which is the largest bank in the world. And the Bank for International Settlements isn't talked about. But every 4 months, all the world leaders from the East and the West meet there to get orders. So while they say, we want a new world order, Satan has already had it, but he can't have it verbally. And Charlie Kirk is just a symptom of both of these families fighting against each other, even though they're under the same orders to fight each other. Both the Orsini and Lee family want to pass the spear of Longinus to the Messiah. because that means they and their family and the breath that they've kept will be underneath Satan and rule the world. That's what they want. Now, they don't call him Satan. They think he's a good guy. He's a humanist. He loves you. And Charlie was a victim of this play, of this game. And I don't think he even realized it. You see, he was surrounded by handlers that could see that he was good at debate and mirrored him towards the greats and educated him to get up into the front so that this day could happen for a political shift for gain for the elites. And this reframing allows them to cast his assassination not as silencing of dissent, but as a consequence of dissent. See, his blood becomes a talking point now. And his name becomes shorthand for what happens when you go too far. Well, that's what happens. And in that way, his death doesn't only silence him, it quiets others who might follow his example. So the left actually gains tactically because the man who once filled lecture halls with conservative fire is no longer there to challenge them. You think Ben Shapiro is going to do a better job than him? Believe me, they hate Ben Shapiro just as much. And he's too for Israel, too much for Israel. Charlie was on the brink of breaking up with Israel. Nobody saw that. But he was starting to see that women, children, and senior citizens were being killed more than just soldiers, more than just civilians. As we have found in our numbers, conservatively, 117,000 people have died in Gaza so far, and 60 to 70% of them were women, children, and senior citizens. You see, what if Charlie Kirk was waking up and the system that both the left and the right want us to behave to needed a distraction to get us back into divide and conquer? So the left, gains tactically. Because fear that followed his assassination ripples through his supporters. And students who once eagerly invited Kirk to campus may hesitate now to host the next speaker, Ben Shapiro. Organizers may lower their profile. So momentum actually slows at this point. And in politics, slowing your opponent is almost as valuable as advancing yourself. So Charlie Kirk's death then is not just the loss of a leader, it is the reallocation of energy. The political left absorbs that energy, reframes the story, and moves the pieces of public opinion one square closer to their side. Now, if politics is war, then the media is the artillery. And after the smoke clears from any assassination, it is the media barrage that determines what people remember. Just like we saw in this stupid media divide and conquer strategy. They're saying the right are loving and the left are destructive. Is this really true? Is it really true? Is the left, are they all destructive, wicked people? No, they're not. Most of the left and the violence that you've seen on TV has been staged by the CIA. Because America, it's your turn now to be divided and conquered because of what you've done in the past to all other countries. It's coming back. It's karma. Now, I don't believe in karma. But there's got to be a biblical point. I'm not going to bash the left and point the finger at them just because an LGBTQ person who identifies as something shot him. That person is just a person. That's an American shooting an American because they were triggered. Pun intended. Shooting people is wrong. But many people think that speaking your opinion is wrong. And this is the conditioning. This helps them to control us, to shut our mouths and not speak up for what we believe in. Because everybody on the left, right, middle, far right, far left, their opinion matters too. But we don't seem to understand that philosophy because, well, we've been dumbed down in school. And school has been paid to keep us stupid, compliant, tax-paying workers of a system that doesn't create leaders. It creates followers. And if any leader starts to step out of the shadows of all the people that they're conditioning, they're shut up immediately. It's the media barrage that determines what people remember, and they just started it. They're jumping on the right. They're jumping on the right. They're now focusing on the right. The press will not describe Charlie Kirk's death as a political assassination meant to silence dissent. They're going to say it's a heart issue with America and the right are doing what's right. They'll just describe it as a symptom of a sick culture. One, of course, that Kirk himself supposedly helped create. And this is the sleight of hand that the establishment has mastered. The victim becomes complicit, the aggressor fades into the background, and the narrative itself becomes the weapon. And yeah, we're letting it happen, folks. So headlines will not say conservative leader targeted. They will say controversial figure shot while discussing gun violence. See, the language strips the humanity out of the man and reduces him to a figure, as if his death were merely an object lesson in irony. No, he was a person. He was an American. And they're even attacking him. Well, I'm of course going to call him a father of two. Humanity has been stripped away from us because of conditioning, because we allow the media and social media, which 90% of all the information that you engage with, it's all bots, not even real people. It amazes me how many people fall in love with a bot and find out it was just some scammer in Indonesia. The very fact that Charlie was speaking about mass shootings when the bullet found him will be recycled endlessly as a kind of cruel punchline. The story will not be Kirk silenced. It will be gun culture consumes itself. And television panels will nod gravely and agree that we must address divisive rhetoric. By this, they will not mean the rhetoric of those who demonized Kirk daily on their shows. They will mean the rhetoric of those who sound like him, his colleagues, his students, his allies. And in one move, the media turns his death into a silencer, not just for his own voice, but for thousands of others. And this is how the narrative engineering works. It's not about reporting facts. It's about framing reality. Because facts are raw material, but framing is the construction of meaning. The media gains from his death because it gives them the perfect opportunity to harden a narrative they've been building for years. That outspoken conservatism is dangerous, that speech equals violence, and that silencing those voices is not censorship but public safety. You guys are being played. You're being conned by the biggest con artists worldwide. So in this way, Charlie Kirk's death becomes less about him and more about the story spun around him. His blood is in the ink, but the pen is held by those who write the headlines. Now, movements rise and fall on the strength of their leaders. Charlie Kirk was not just another commentator shouting into the noise of the internet. He was a general who marshaled troops, coordinated campaigns, and provided a clear direction for his followers. Something to admire. Can you do what he did? 99% of the people who are bitching and whining about people being upset about his death, can you? Can you do what Charlie did for your own values, principles, and belief system? His sudden removal doesn't just silence his voice, it actually destabilizes the entire ecosystem that he built. And this is why they needed someone right away, ready to go, Ben Shapiro. And Turning Point USA's flagship organization now faces a crisis of succession. No one expected to replace him this soon. And movements built around charismatic founders rarely transition smoothly. So what Charlie built, it was an amazing feat. Now, some will jockey for power, others will splinter off, and donors may hesitate to keep writing checks without the assurance that the mission will continue unbroken. And the machinery still exists, the chapters, the networks, the events, but without its architect, the gears begin to grind. The loss doesn't stop with Turning Point, folks. Across conservative landscape, Kirk's presence had ripple effects. He was a bridge between grassroots students and national politicians, a recruiter who kept the younger generation connected to the cause. And without him, those bridges weaken. The next wave of students entering college may never hear the voice that once convinced their peers to resist the tide. So momentum stalls and recruitment slows and the fire dims. Who gains? The left. Or the Lee family, or the Chicago mafia, who works for China and Russia. Meanwhile, his adversaries know this. They understand that killing a leader rarely kills a movement outright, but it does create confusion, hesitation, and fear. For every young conservative now asking who will replace him, there are others asking, is it worth the risk to step forward? You see, that hesitation is victory for the opposition. The conservative movement is left scrambling. And in that scrambling lies the first stage of defeat. As assassinations don't just stop speeches, they scatter flocks. And when flocks scatter, the wolves move in. And this is why Charlie Kirk's wife was put on a pedestal and to speak forward way too soon with a logo in front of her, Turning Point, to avenge her husband and to vow that this will only strengthen the right. Now, I do believe, this is just my opinion, that it was not the left. They're more sloppy. That this was an actual assassination from the right politically. As many are saying, this is MAGA on MAGA violence. I have to agree, but it wasn't a MAGA supporter. It was a team hired either by Israel or by Trump or by both to go in and kill a conservative to blame on the left, to get the conservatives back on track with the Trump campaign, with the Orsini campaign, with the changes that he's supposedly doing to make America great again, to get the Orsinis back in 99% control of the Federal Reserve, 99% control of all the world's currencies like they had 50 years ago. Now, I could be wrong, but I think it was a trip, a moment of weakness on the right's part to kill one of their own, especially Charlie Kirk. Now, the way that he was, the way that he talked, the way that he would not even compromise to just anything opposite tells me that he was groomed for this exact moment. That I don't believe that he was an actual, real, just plain Jane or plain Joe American that started and wanted to make a difference for Christianity and for the world. You see, political movements that gain the traction that his movement did never get that big because, well, Satan will crush it. So I believe that, and this is going to piss off a lot of the people on the right, and I'm not a leftist or rightist. I used to be rightist, but I'm starting to see, that Trump is a PDF file. He is a wicked man, and he is not for the people. And there are no white hats that are coming to save us because we live in a fallen world. And everyone thinks that there's going to be some jubilee in the end right before Satan starts his attack on the Christians. No. We already had our revival. It happened in the 1920s with the 7 great Pentecostal pioneers. And all of the wonders that they did. Some did even greater works than Jesus. Every high-profile assassination in America has the same aftershock. A fresh chorus of voices demanding that the state do something about guns. And it doesn't matter whether the shooter was mentally ill, radicalized, or acting under mysterious circumstances. The solution is always the same: expand control, shrink liberty. I'm not for gun control at all. I'm for mental illness fixing. And Charlie Kirk was killed not in a back alley either, but on a stage, under lights, in front of cameras. The setting ensures maximum spectacle. And in the wake of such spectacle, politicians and bureaucrats gain their greatest leverage. Already the headlines are primed. A gunman silences a conservative while he was speaking about gun violence. Oh, the irony. It will not be wasted by the left. It will be used as proof that guns themselves are the problem, not the shooter, not the ideology, not the possibility of orchestration. Those are side effects of gun violence. Well, the state gains because each assassination pushes the needle forward and toward disarmament. And look what happens when you disarm the people. Canada's out of control. The Orsinis took over, and they're going to merge Canada with America now. Bye-bye, independent Canada. You're screwed. You see, you've got no rights because they took your guns because they're not afraid of you anymore. There's no fear. What are you going to do with your hunting rifles? Come after the Canada Army with your hunting rifles? No. Guns are the only thing keeping America from the Orsinis taking it over and the Lee family taking it over. That's it. You see, the state gains because each assassination pushes the needle forward towards disarmament. And expect to hear calls for universal background checks. Expect to start hearing red flag laws and tighter control over the so-called dangerous speech that allegedly fuels violence. See, it's dangerous speech now that makes guns kill people. The public, weary and afraid, will be told that surrendering more of their rights is the only way to ensure safety. And in times of grief, the people often comply, just like Canada did, just like Australia did when they gave up their hunting rifles. Don't. Just stop. Don't let them take your guns. Otherwise, you will be socialist, which leads to communist. And look at the history of communism. It's got a very bad track record. Well, but this time will be different. It never is different. You got to stop and look at the bankers and what they've done over the years. If you don't study bankers and how they make money and what they do behind the scenes with their secret society fucks, you will never understand why you are always being manipulated and controlled. When people say to wake up, go to the source and start working on an information story. They say, follow the money. That is where you will find the bankers and all of the rotten stuff they've done to countries to gain more power. It's the bankers that are the cause. And we're just discussing the symptoms. Charlie Kirk is a symptom of what the bankers are trying to accomplish. You see, if you don't know the bankers and their agenda, you're not going to understand the political noise that they put in front of us to distract us from all of the stuff that they sign behind scenes. Stripping away your rights for more control. And this is the real dividend of bloodshed. Every bullet becomes a vote for greater state power. And the people lose their liberty incrementally, while the government gains new authority to regulate not only weapons, but the lives of those who carry them. So in this way, Charlie Kirk's death will be weaponized not against his killer, but against the right of millions of citizens who never pulled a trigger. And the state does not weep at funerals, it calculates. And in this calculation, the death of one outspoken man becomes the excuse to bind a nation tighter under its grip. So guns are not the only target. Words are. This is why freedom of speech and guns are the first two in the amendments to keep us from control. And Charlie Kirk's assassination did not take place in private. It happened in the middle of a dialogue during a question and answer session with microphones recording and students listening. And that detail will not be ignored. You think the right's going to gain up and use their guns to take out the Orsini clan and the Lee clan over in Chicago? Well, it looks like Trump is trying to get into Chicago, so maybe. That detail will not be ignored. It will be framed as a lesson that words themselves are dangerous. Oh, we have got to stop people from talking to each other. And that rhetoric can kill. That speech has consequences. This framing is gold for a state already eager to expand control into the digital and ideological spheres. You see, for years, governments and tech platforms have been testing the waters, deplatforming, shadow banning, demonetizing. But a high-profile assassination provides something far more powerful, more justification. If Charlie Kirk's words are said to have provoked his own murder, then suddenly speech itself becomes a weapon. And weapons in the eyes of the state must be regulated. The first two rights that we had were the freedom of speech and the right to bear arms, right off the bat. And those are being attacked. In fact, Charlie Kirk's neck shot could have sealed the coffin in the death of the First and Second Amendment. And we will hear calls for new laws against hate speech too. Yeah, hate speech and guns, they're going after us talking and us fighting back, okay? It's like a bad relationship where you have an abusive spouse and the spouse is beating up on the other one and telling the other one to shut up and telling the other one, you don't need guns to defend yourself against me. I love you. We're in a bad relationship with an abusive spouse. And we hear calls for new laws against hate speech, right? Radicalized speech now. Incendiary speech. Fiery speech makes people want to kill people. But those terms will never be clearly defined. And they don't have to be, because ambiguity is power. Because it allows the enforcers to choose, case by case, who may speak and who must be silenced. The same government that regulates bullets will claim the right to regulate syllables. And this is how assassinations are transmuted into policy. One man's death becomes the pretext for controlling millions of voices. His assassination may silence him, but the greater goal is to silence everyone who sounds like him. That is the true gain for the state. You're in the way of making money, Charlie. And the irony here is bitter. It's bitter. Charlie Kirk's murder committed by a gun will be remembered not only as a reason to disarm citizens, but also as a reason to muzzle them. In this theater, both Second Amendment and First Amendment come under fire, and the state gains ground on both fronts. Who gains from this? The bankers, the money changers. They don't give a fuck about the left and a fuck about the right. All they want is your guns and your mouth. Because if you speak against them, you're a big mouth. And if they lose money on you trying to free people from their fucked up system, then they will kill you. They did it to Charlie Kirk live. You see, there is a signature that marks certain events, a strange symmetry too sharp to be coincidence. And Charlie Kirk was assassinated while speaking about mass shootings. He was making the case that guns are not the problem, that culture and morality are the deeper sickness. He was right. And then a bullet tore through his neck, cutting his words short. This is not just violence. This is theater. It is irony weaponized into ritual. And in the language of the occult, irony is a kind of signature, a mocking fingerprint of forces that delight in contradiction. See, when Charlie died, the demons were laughing their asses off because of the people who followed him and the people who hated him, because the left and the right gained from this. And to slay a man with the very instrument he is defending is not just murder, it is mockery. It sends a message. Your words mean nothing. Your cause is powerless. Your defense collapses under its own weight. Whether orchestrated by human hands or exploited by darker powers or even AI, the symbolism is the same. Silence the messenger in the middle of his speech, and the act itself becomes the spell. And America ate it up.
Hey, Charlie. I love Charlie. Hey, Charlie. Love Charlie.
Eating it up. You've been played like a fiddle. And assassinations that carry this ritual irony are never forgotten either. Think of John Lennon, the apostle of peace, gunned down in New York City, his beloved city. Think of Martin Luther King Jr., the preacher of nonviolence, struck down by violence. You see, Charlie Kirk joins that grim litany, not because of the scale of his influence, but because of the precision of the contradiction. Who gains from this irony? Well, those who feed on spectacle. Those who understand that murder, carried out in perfect contradiction, sears itself into the public memory. It creates not only grief, but confusion. Not only rage, but despair. And that confusion is power as it disorients the flock, as it destabilizes the movement, as it weakens resolve. And in the unseen realm, it offers energy to the spirits that feast on chaos and contradiction. That's the theater of ritual. That's the Luciferian game. A man silenced mid-sentence by the very weapon he was defending becomes more than a victim. He becomes a symbol, whether his supporters wish it or not, and his blood seals the irony. And the stage is set, the curtain drawn, and the ritual complete. Satan wins. Again. If there is one currency the powers of darkness crave, it is division. Assassinations are not just bullets. They're wedges driven into the heart of the people. And Charlie Kirk's death is already being interpreted through different lenses, as each group pulling the meaning towards its own narrative. Not an American that died in cold blood in front of millions. Everyone's seen it. And conservatives see it as persecution. Progressives see it as the inevitable end of toxic rhetoric. But moderates sigh and say, this country is hopeless. You see, every group draws its own line in the sand, and those lines never meet. Have you seen one video of a person that just says, we have got to get the left and the right together and figure out why we're being manipulated to hate each other? Nope, not one TikTok about that. Oh, it'll be shut down. It doesn't feed the beast system. And this is how division multiplies. The assassination was one act, one moment in time, but the interpretations fracture endlessly. As families argue across dinner tables, students clash on campuses, politicians are sharpening their talking points for the next election cycle. So what should be a moment of mourning becomes another battlefield, and we need to recognize this. And the longer the battle rages, the more entrenched each side becomes. In spiritual terms, this is harvest time for the enemy, the loosh gathering, the breath harvesting. And division is food for principalities and powers. They thrive when a people can no longer see their common humanity, only their partisan identity. So they grow stronger when outrage becomes the dominant emotion of a nation. And the more we fight each other, the less we see the real hands pulling the strings. So who gains from Kirk's death on this level? Not just his political opponents, not just the state, but the unseen forces of chaos that rise whenever blood is spilled in public view. They gain not from the bullet itself, but from what follows. The endless cycle of blame, rage, fear, and despair. And in that cycle, the nation weakens, the people fracture, and the powers of darkness tighten their grip. Charlie Kirk's assassination was not only an attack of a man, it was a strike at the bonds that hold communities together. And the tragedy is that, unless the people wake up, the true killers will never be caught. Not because they're hiding in shadows, but because they are feasting in plain sight on the hatred, bitterness, and division his death unleashed. And at the highest level, beyond left and right, beyond parties and pundits, stands those who profit whenever nations fracture. The global elite, the financiers, the technocrats, and shadow families who manipulate both sides of every conflict. They gain most from spectacles like this. They do not weep for Charlie Kirk. They do not even care which side wins the argument. What they care about is acceleration, the forward thrust of division, fear, and dependency, because their masters require it. And while America convulses over this assassination, the elite advance their true agenda quietly in the background. They press further with central bank digital currencies, promising safety in exchange for surveillance. They tighten global governance structures through BRICS and the IMF, uniting East and West under one financial altar. They deepen their hold over media platforms, ensuring that only a approved narrative of Kirk's death reaches the masses. Because to them, Kirk's assassination is not a tragedy, but an asset. Because it diverts attention from economic collapse, from wars abroad, from the slow handover of sovereignty to international bodies, while the people rage against each other. The elite continue building the very same system that will enslave both sides equally. And it sucks to watch it, but there's nothing I can do but expose it here with 23 people watching. This is their genius, the elite, to profit from chaos without ever being blamed for causing it. They do not need fire, or they don't need to fire the bullet. They only need to control the headlines, the policies, and the fear that follows. And in this same sense, Kirk's death is a strategic victory for them. A divided America cannot resist a global order. A grieving movement cannot unite against the architects of its oppression. A silenced leader cannot rally the youth against the machinery of control. So who gains at the highest level? The same ones who always do. The hidden kings of finance, the black nobilities of bloodlines, the merchants of surveillance, the unseen hands that set the stage for Antichrist rule. Because to them, every martyr is not an enemy, but a stepping stone. Every crisis is not a setback, but a tool. So at the deepest level, beyond politics, beyond media, beyond even the schemes of the elites, the PDF files, there is another dimension where gain looks very different. For though the assassination may gloat, or the assassins may gloat, though the state may tighten its grip, though the powers of chaos may feed, there is still one thing they cannot take: the external weight of a life laid down in the public square. Charlie Kirk did not choose martyrdom, but it came upon him. And in the spiritual war, that changes everything. Martyrdom is not only about dying for the faith, it is about being cut down for standing in any capacity against the tide of darkness. And Scripture shows us again and again and again that the blood of the righteous does not vanish into the earth. It cries out. It becomes seed. It becomes testimony. And it carries a weight that no bullet can erase. So there is hope. And for Kirk's supporters, the crown of martyrdom is a reminder that voices can be silenced, but truth cannot be killed. His death will not end the conversation. It will magnify it. His absence may scatter some, but it will also embolden others who see in his fall the cost of speaking freely in a world increasingly hostile to truth. For the church, it's a sober reminder that the days of comfort are over. The line between faith and politics, between speech and survival, is narrowing. The martyr crown is not reserved for foreign lands anymore. It now falls in America too. And though men may see loss, heaven actually sees gain. And what the enemy meant for mockery, God can transmute it into witness. And I've seen it firsthand. God can turn anything bad into something good. So who gains then in the final reckoning? Yes, the left gains tactically. Yes, the state gains strategically. Yes, the elite gain globally. And yes, the spirits of chaos gain spiritually. But above all, the kingdom of God gains eternally, forever. Because the blood of martyrs has always been the seed of awakening. And though Charlie Kirk's voice has been silenced on earth, his death now speaks in ways life never could. And the last word belongs to not to the assassin, not to the media, not to the state, but to the judge who weighs every life in his scales. It's God. And in those scales, no bullet, no law, no ritual irony can erase the crown of martyrdom that now rests upon Charlie Kirk's head. We begin here with a question, and we end with it. Who gains from the assassination of Charlie Kirk? Now, after tracing the layers, the answer is pretty clear. On the surface, the political left gains a tactical victory. They lose a loud opponent and gain the ability to reframe his legacy as a warning. The media gains by writing the script, shaping not just the facts but the meaning, weaponizing his death into a narrative of speech as violence. The state gains by pushing both gun control and speech regulation, expanding its grip under the guise of safety. And the conservative movement, meanwhile, reels in confusion, its momentum fractured, its ranks are demoralized. But I believe that the right were the ones that did it. And I think they weren't thinking. But deeper still, the global elite gained strategically. While Americans rage against each other, they continue consolidating power. Building digital chains of currency and surveillance, forging the infrastructure of the next empire. And in the unseen realm, the spirits of chaos feast on the division, hatred, and despair unleashed by the spectacle. Because for them, every assassination is a ritual, every contradiction a sacrifice, every division a harvest. Yet that is not the final word. Because while the assassins, the elites, and the powers of darkness all gain something, God has the last gain. For what they meant for evil, he will turn into good. For what they staged as mockery, he can transmute into testimony. And the crown of martyrdom rests not in the hands of the killers, but in the hands of the king who redeems every drop of blood spilled in his sight. So who truly gains? Well, the left gains tactically, the state gains strategically, the elite gain globally, and the spirits of chaos gain spiritually. But the kingdom of God gains eternally. For Charlie Kirk's death, like the death of so many before him, it becomes a planted seed. And that seed planted in blood will not lie dormant forever. It will rise. It will bear fruit, and it will testify that no bullet, no law, no ritual, and no empire can silence the truth. So once more, the question comes back to us. Will we let the theater consume us? Or will we refuse to give the enemy what it wants? Will we fight each other, or will we anchor ourselves in the only kingdom that cannot be shaken? Now, Charlie Kirk's voice is gone, but the question that he leaves behind remains. Who gains, and who will we choose to serve?
Why do 75% of people feel exhausted all the time? The answer might surprise you. In the 1920s, Standard Oil decided to dive into medicine. They pushed synthetic petroleum into our drugs. Sure, it masked symptoms, but it wrecked our guts. Our good bacteria, which fight off parasites and heavy metals, got wiped out by crude oil. But here's the good news. We can fix this by going back to nature. Introducing Elite Potion, the world's top detox program. It restores your good bacteria by removing toxic threats like aluminum, strontium, barium, and parasites. Imagine feeling energized and alive again. They said there couldn't be a pill that did it all. We invented it. Visit elitepotion.com and reclaim your health from synthetic pharmaceuticals. Your body will thank you.
This has been Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Garner. Tune in tomorrow night when God gives me another revelation to tell you guys all about. God bless you, God keep you, and God thank you for supporting my show. Please go to jamesgarner.com and sign up to my newsletter. That's the only way I can get a hold of you if I get shut down. And I got 3 free books there. Go download them. They're all yours. Go to elitepotion.com and sign up for my award-winning detox program of parasites and heavy metals. It's what's killing the temple. Get the temple back in order by feeling better again. You'll be happy, God will be happy. And if you could all do me one big favor, if you could all just try to love your neighbor, well, I believe this world would be a better place. We'll see you tomorrow.